speaker, Charlotte Thompson. Right, take it away.
Great. I think I was enjoying too much listening to Lauren answer those great questions. I think it's my favourite lunchtime chat is what's going to happen to the John Lewis building, not as Arup, but just as citizens in the city. So everything from an outdoor swimming pool to a climbing wall, the creative ideas coming forward from people is just really exciting. So I'm sure I could have just spent the next 15 minutes chatting about that. As well as chatting about bikes, I'm sure I could also deliver a presentation on bikepacking adventures, but I will focus on talking about innovation and in particular my board role in a local business in Sheffield called Mobile Power. But how did I come to work with Mobile Power? Really, throughout my whole career, I've worked within innovation, particularly that awkward bit where you've probably got perhaps a prototype, a product on the bench, and then how do you take that and demonstrate it in the real environment so that it can grow and scale and be commercialized. And that really came about because I wanted to extend my time at university. I was rowing at the time and fancied doing a master's so that I could continue to row, which is probably not a really good reason, but it actually inspired the rest of my career in that I was looking at commercializing some intellectual property from the University of Manchester. And from that, really enjoyed that startup entrepreneurship culture. And landed myself a graduate role at the Science and Technology Facilities Council, where I went on to build and develop a business incubator on CERN technology. So looking to transfer the amazing expertise from the Large Hadron Collider into UK small medium enterprises. But I felt a bit of a fraud delivering that kind of business support without having actually been in a business myself. So I joined one of the startups I'd been supporting in water treatment technology. And it had just lost a couple of large nuclear contracts and was pivoting into the water industry. And so I led on its market strategy and where to position it commercially, as well as raising public innovation funding and private finance. I then went to go join one of the UK innovation networks called KTN, where I'd used my experience of raising public innovation funding and private finance to deliver investment programs, mostly in areas like geospatial, robotics and AI, agri-tech, plastic circular economy, all sorts. So I got to work across multiple sectors and technologies, but really around that raising investment piece. And one of the programs I got to work on was through the UK's innovation funding agency called Innovate UK. And at the start of the pandemic, they launched a couple of £100 million in grant fund to fund innovation projects that were responding to COVID-19 and its recovery. But at the heart of all of those innovation projects, they had to demonstrate that they were doing so in a sustainable way. And supporting those that were applying and then shaping the competitions that were coming through through multiple rounds, it was quite clear what good looked like from a sustainability perspective. Because a lot of them, they didn't have to be a sustainable business, as in they didn't have to be producing a product and service that was solving a sustainable challenge. They just had to make sure that as a business, they weren't having any detrimental effects in terms of their operations, the way that they were developing new products and services, in the teams that they were developing, and the wider impact once that product and service was being sold. So really challenging innovators on the way that they took new ideas to market, even if it wasn't necessarily core to why they started the business in the first place. So yeah, it was really fascinating time to kind of go beyond that kind of tick box corporate social responsibility. Yep, done that, to know this is embedded in the values of how you create a really sustainable business model. But yeah, from that, I've kind of worn multiple hats within the innovation ecosystem, but one of them I hadn't had was working in a large global firm, and saw the opportunity to join Arup, where I've been working to scale new digital products across the organisation, particularly again around sustainability. But I also maintain my board role with Mobile Power, and I joined their board as a result of supporting them raise some Innovate UK grant funding through the Global Challenge Research Fund, as well as the Energy Catalyst, as well as the Innovate UK Innovation Loans. So they've done very well as a startup organisation to engage with the innovation funding and accelerators and local support that has really allowed them to now go up on that scale up journey. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about them because yeah, there's a good reason why I'm on the board, and it's, you know, I'm very passionate about what they're doing. So Mobile Power exists to solve clean energy access, and they enable customers to rent these charged mobile batteries, and they can do so without any credit checks, no deposit, no fixed payment plan, and is really an inclusive community-based energy access offering. And the reason why they have developed this is because the founding team found that there's a disconnect between people being able to access energy but having the financial means to do so. So they don't necessarily have the credit backing to be able to raise the finance or take out loans to put in the energy infrastructure within their homes. So the founding team started the company in Sheffield. They're about now 25, based out of the UK, with the main really function of providing the finances and the technology development within the heart of the city, and they engage a lot with the universities, colleges, apprenticeship programs like Kickstart scheme to hire the amazing talent we have here, as well as accessing that finance and engaging with that innovation ecosystem, which they wouldn't have got if they launched their company in their primary market of West Africa. So what problem are they trying to solve? You can see down here in this bottom right corner is a picture of the current setup. So not Mobile Power's the problem. The problem is that people go to these like solar hubs where they will plug in their phone and they'll wait for it to be charged, and then they can take their phone away, which is, you know, not necessarily a great use of time, and also relies on access to these solar hubs. And at the moment, there's about, well, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, about 1.1 billion people lacking access to electricity, but also on the other side of that, there's over 600 million mobile phone subscribers who are not connected to that electricity and spend about 20% of their income on generators, on batteries for lighting in their homes. So there's a huge sort of energy access issue which Mobile Power went to try and address. And they've done that initially by looking at household energy. And so they've launched their Mopo battery, small kind of battery packs that people can take back to their homes to run things, to cook their food and lighting or homework and what have you in the evenings. But also they've just launched in piloting their solution for electric vehicles, particularly in things like mopeds. So moving into the electric vehicle market as well. But what for me is how they're implementing it that is the most innovative thing. It's not necessarily just the tech itself. So they either engage with existing solar systems and hubs, or existing connections to the grid, or they establish their own hubs. And then they hire local agents. So I think they've got about 300 now who access credits from Mobile Power using mobile money. And it's with these credits that customers can pay the agents directly by any means that they can. So that can be cash, it can be using mobile money again. And the agents will then activate those batteries using the credits that have been bought from Mobile Power. So it creates this battery as a service scalable solution but at the same time addressing that challenge around microfinance for a large number of people who don't have access to energy currently. So now, having worked for Mobile Power over the last few years, I've really grown to love their way that they've gone about scaling their business. And in the first instance, they've really tried to hone in on the biggest challenge in the market about customer financing. So how can people finance their energy requirements? And so they understood the pain, they understood how what would be the right mechanisms for people to be able to pay, and then they built the technology in order to suit that business model in which they thought was going to be the best to scale this solution. And equally understanding the behaviors of, yes, their customers, but also the agents. So how can they incentivize the behaviors of their agents so that they want to grow and see Mobile Power a success. So currently, the majority of Mobile Power's competitors are fitting within that kind of top 15% of the market, where there's like a proven commercial model that you can generate profits. And the remaining market is pretty well underserved because those customers tend to have variable energy demand. Those customers tend to be highly mobile, so don't actually spend much time at home. They're not able to invest in their own system. They might be unbanked. And also they might have a low usage of mobile money, so still very much focused on cash-based local economies. And so it's this market that Mobile Power have tapped. And they've done so by aggregating that customer energy demand by a community level, establishing these hubs for providing battery as a service. And here's just an image of one of their hubs where they currently have 4 agents providing that battery service in Sierra Leone. So they started in Sierra Leone, but they've now expanded into other African countries, and hopefully by the end of this year, even more so. So yeah, it's now at that kind of exciting growth phase. So if you've ever had your own idea for perhaps a sustainability business, then some of the key themes that I would perhaps consider is the strength in partnerships. So aligning and understanding your strengths and weaknesses, and where through partnerships you can grow and scale your proposition faster and better by combining the sum of its parts into a stronger proposition. And that can be from a supply chain perspective, so in great supply chain partners. It could be in accessing the market, because somebody might be already operating in that space and you might have an aligned customer base. It could be from a finance perspective, so ensuring that finances understand your mission, and is there expectations on when they might get a return on their investment aligned with your timeframes. And it could also be for things like on just purely from a values perspective. So an example with Mobile Power is they often hire women agents, but with that can cause a lot of local issues because of the culture in place. And so they work with, for example, a charity that works on transforming masculinity. So working with male counterparts in those communities to help empower those women. But they also, particularly around their electric vehicle work that they're doing at the moment, is they're working with a charity to train women drivers for tuk-tuks, for taxi driving. So not necessarily what you would expect from a typical partnership, but a creative way of thinking about how you might grow and test your business idea. And I also want to just put a nod to making sure your alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals, and not necessarily pursuing one in isolation, because of the interconnectivity there is between, for example, energy access and inequality. And that's what I quite like, is that particularly with Mobile Power, is that they've considered by pursuing perhaps we must be using like renewable energy, we must be going pursuing that without taking into account people involved will have a detrimental long-term effect. And so making sure that yes, we might be driving a business around a particular agenda, but actually that we consider them as a whole. What I also like is that it doesn't necessarily need to be about innovation from a technology perspective. We can also be innovative from other ways, whether that's in service innovation, through the business model innovation, and it can just be a subtle change, or it can be something totally disruptive. So being more creative in our innovation approaches. And equally, I think that especially if you're just starting from that idea phase, you are in such a strong position relative to the likes of my work with Arup, where I'm trying to do digital transformation. It's slow, innovation adoption is painful, making a change across the whole organization is challenging. Yet actually, as a startup, when you're basing something from scratch, you have got such an amazing opportunity to set a strong foundation for that future growth of that business. So yeah, as part of that innovation development journey, considering this as embedding it into the business foundations, I think is really vital. So yeah, so from if you were to think about perhaps starting a business or taking an idea forward, there's actually quite a lot of support available in Sheffield in the UK. So one through the Sheffield City Region Growth Hub, also through Innovate UK Edge that provides some targeted business support. I mentioned KTN, who I used to work for. I still think they're doing incredible work, and it's a great way of building your innovation network. Network is king in terms of being able to scale that business and validate your idea. So even at those early phases, you can be building a really strong network. And like today as well, is a great way to meet new faces. So look forward to hearing a little bit more about people we've got in the room today. And also just a shout out to Team SY, they've built out a really good innovation ecosystem map of South Yorkshire. So good to see who else is working in the region. And then if you are thinking global, then of course the Department for International Trade to support in things like export finances and ways you might be looking to expand. So yeah, I hope that's been interesting. That's more than enough from me. And yeah, I look forward to hearing your questions and meeting you.